Look. Before I get started with this breakdown, Canelo Alvarez versus Crawford, and why I think Canelo Alvarez is going to beat Crawford, and I don't think Crawford has much of a chance to win the fight. I'm going to break that down. Before I do, I want to thank you guys for last video. The reason why I'm doing this breakdown is because I saw their comments of people just interested on who I think would win between Canelo and Crawford. I thought I made it clear, but there's a lot of new subscribers, and I never really did a breakdown, so I'm going to do that now. I want to thank you guys, though, because YouTube tried to hate on that video, bro. I mean, copyrights for reasons. I'm whitelisted with the Zone videos and stuff like that, and you guys still support it and got that video over the threshold. It's doing extremely well right now. Before I get started, too, I want to say a few things. Number one, I know you guys are going to start jumping in the comments and start typing. I want to say I'm not trying to convince any of you to think like me or be convinced if you're a Crawford fan or if you're a Canelo fan. Be more convinced or convinced at all that Canelo Alvarez would beat Crawford. I'm just responding to the questions in regards to what I think, who I think would win, and why. All right. Another thing, a few things I want to put on your head first before we do the entire breakdown is this. I want you guys to try to think of when you've seen a fighter go up 3 weight classes in 1 year to fight and defeat a champion who's younger than him. I just want you guys to put that on you, because it's not just Canelo being younger. Crawford will be 38 this year. All right. So he's at that age where, I mean, you're considered an old fighter. He's a young man, but he's considered an old fighter. But Crawford's a fantastic fighter, a very elite fighter. All right. One of those guys like Ward, Floyd Mayweather, one of those type of James Toney, one of those type of skill sets where they could go on for a very long time because of their skill. But I just want you guys to think about that. Another thing, there is a notion that Crawford is like Floyd Mayweather, and I don't agree. All right. If you look at the punches Crawford gets hit with, if you look at his fight with Madrimov, just his last fight, most recent fight, the punches he got hit with, Floyd Mayweather doesn't get hit, especially consecutively, like those type of punches in a row. I don't see Crawford as a Floyd Mayweather. All right. And a lot of people say that because they think about how Floyd totally destroyed Saul Canelo Alvarez. I want you guys to think about this too before my breakdown. Floyd Mayweather versus Canelo in comparison to Terence Crawford versus Canelo. Keep this in mind that Canelo Alvarez and Floyd fought at a catch weight. All right. In this situation, Terence Crawford will be moving up 3 weight classes to Canelo's world. All right. I want you. That's a huge distinction. All right. Well, it's 2 weight classes now that he had that quick fight with Madrimov at 154. And we'll be talking about that fight. At the end of this video, I will be playing 2 fights, showing 2 fights from the Zone. We're in the Zone war room. I'll be showing 2 fights. Canelo Alvarez versus Bivol and Terence Crawford versus Madrimov. 2 fights where they didn't look their best against that op. And I'm showing those 2 fights for a reason. All right. But yeah, Terence Crawford, that's a distinction. And I want to say I will be crediting Crawford more if he fights Canelo Alvarez than Floyd. Though Floyd fighting Canelo Alvarez was a huge deal, especially at that point of his career and where Canelo was. That was that was insane. All right. But what Crawford is trying to do against Canelo is crazier. And I always said, okay, it's my theory that the crazier, the better. The crazier, the greater. All right. When somebody do something crazier in boxing, it's greater in my opinion. Like Harry Greb fighting with one eye, going 45-0 in 1 year. Shit like that. Okay. Usyk fighting Tyson Fury after becoming undisputed at cruiserweight, fighting a 6'9" heavyweight, giving up 60 pounds, whatever he did. I mean, that's just crazy work. All right. And I think I'll be referencing Usyk in a minute. But when I do this breakdown, I will be doing a few things. One, looking at the size, speaking on that because size is a big thing here. Pause. Pause. Hold on. Let me get my coffee. My black two sugars. Me one cookie. lip of that cup. I'll be talking about that. I'll also be talking about attributes and skill level, and we'll be talking about styles. A lot of people say styles make fights. Okay, so let's just talk about the size difference. Canelo Alvarez is bigger, and there is a notion that Terrence Crawford, he walks around at a similar weight to Canelo Alvarez, so the size difference isn't much. I want you guys to understand this huge distinction here. There's a difference between walk around weight and fighting weight. All right, where you fight at, where you campaign at, and walk around weight. But let me give you an example here, and especially when people say Terrence Crawford got the height, got the reach, and stuff like that. If you look at like Tommy Hearns, he's taller than Mike Tyson, right? Reach longer than Mike Tyson, but it's obvious that Mike Tyson is a bigger guy. Okay, if you look at Bob Foster, a great example was Bob Foster versus Joe Frazier. Bob Foster was Julian the Hawk Jackson before Julian the Hawk Jackson. He was tall, he had good footwork, a crazy left hook, he was knocking everybody out. And against Joe Frazier, he had a huge height advantage, he had the reach advantage, and he had the type of power where people thought it may just translate up to heavyweight. Joe Frazier showed that he is a bigger man, making short work of Bob Foster.
And Foster is hit with a paralyzing left hook. Foster courageously gets to his feet. Champion Joe Frazier moves in to finish it. Paralyzing punches by champion Joe Frazier. A dynamite left hook, and Bob Foster goes down again.
And that's where style's going to come in when breaking down Canelo Alvarez versus Terrence Bud Crawford. Because Joe Frazier, how he was built, how he trained, all right, how he was developed, was to take on guys bigger and longer than him, all right? Pause. Just like Iron Mike Tyson, just like Saul Canelo Alvarez. Now, so when we're talking about size here, all right, though Terrence Crawford walk around at a weight that not as heavy as Canelo Alvarez, but with his height and everything, people say, oh, they're around the same size. They're not the same size of fighter, all right? When you talk about that, you got to talk about durability. You got to talk about the punches they land. If you look at Canelo Alvarez versus Jermell Charlo, if you look at how Jermell Charlo may walk around the same size as Canelo, but it was obvious that Canelo was the bigger man in there. Another example, you look at how Canelo dropped the likes of guys like Berlanga with one punch. And the punches he was absorbing from Berlanga. I mean, you don't have to be a genius or a boxing pugilist to understand that Terrence Crawford cannot pack the type of punch to drop Berlanga like that with one punch, and he can't absorb the type of punches Canelo Alvarez was absorbing from the likes of Berlanga or Triple G or Kovalev or Bivol or any of those guys. Terrence Crawford cannot absorb those type of punches, all right? So when we talk about size and we talk about strength and all those things, we cannot start confusing ourselves into thinking that Terrence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez is around the same size. Hey, my fire is going out because my wood was wet. Pause. I got it from outside. Anyway, I digress. So look, that fire's done. So look, you can't confuse that. Canelo Alvarez is a bigger, stronger guy because he fights up. He fights at 168. He deals with that. And I don't think we have to do a deep dive when it comes to that. When it comes to attributes, Canelo Alvarez stronger, better chin. He's also younger. He's younger by 3+ years than Terrence Bud Crawford. There are a lot of things physically, attributes-wise, physical attributes-wise, that's going into Canelo Alvarez's favor. But the one thing that we have to talk about is speed. If you look at Terrence Crawford, and Terrence Crawford is a fast fighter, period. He's coming from lightweight, starting from lightweight all the way up. His great athlete, full body-wise, foot-wise, everything. You will see him as a faster fighter, all right? But I am going to argue that Canelo Alvarez, though Terrence is faster than Canelo, I don't think he's going to be that much faster than Canelo at 168 at 37, close to 38 years old. I think Terrence Crawford is definitely naturally faster, and he'll be faster at 135, faster at 147. But at 168, at 37 plus years old, I'm not sure he's going to be that much faster. Listen to what I think Sergio Mora said about Canelo Alvarez when he was punching on Berlanga.
The speed of these Canelo Alvarez shots is just cartoonish.
He said that his speed is cartoonish. Canelo Alvarez hand speed and his upper body speed is deceptively fast, and people don't talk about that much. Even when you look at Jermell Charlo versus Canelo Alvarez, his timing was one thing. Charlo was a bit faster than Canelo, a little bit. But Canelo Alvarez timing with his speed made it hard for Jermell Charlo to throw in the exchange and feel he can outpunch Canelo Alvarez, especially with the punches, the type of punches Canelo Alvarez is throwing at Charlo, devastating punches.
He'll fight his way out of it with the left counter. And an overhand right just deflected, but now Jermell.
Terrence Crawford will be faster than Canelo Alvarez. But look at this single shot from Canelo Alvarez against Berlanga. That is some serious speed. If you look at Terrence Crawford, his last fight against Madrimov, and you look at the type of punches Madrimov was able to hit Terrence Crawford with, I believe Canelo Alvarez is a more skillful and a better fighter than Madrimov, just a better fighter, more experienced, all those things. I don't think I have to argue that, but people may argue that in the comments. I don't think it's even an argument. Canelo Alvarez's approach to landing punches on Terrence Crawford is going to be better than Madrimov, and look at the success that Madrimov had against Terrence Bud Crawford. And I think he had that success because of style. Let's talk about style, stylistically. Terrence Bud Crawford is a slick fighter in spurts. He's definitely a gifted fighter. But what he has been his entire career is the bigger fighter. And if you look at how he fought Madrimov, you can tell that's in there. He is still fighting as he does when he's the bigger fighter, all right? And against Madrimov, he just could not hurt Madrimov, not enough to back Madrimov back. And I think a lot of Terrence Crawford's style is dependent upon that. Terrence Crawford will walk you down and he will brutalize you. He's not the mover that Floyd Mayweather is. Terrence Crawford is a bit different here, all right? And that's something that I've noticed that people don't talk about. They see him as a sweet Pea Whitaker for some reason, and he's not. He would definitely fight you. And against Madrimov, it reared its ugly head, making the fight a bit closer. And I think he can't afford to do that against Canelo. If you listen to Canelo, what he said to Sway, check out what Canelo had to say about Terrence Crawford's movement.
The last fight, and he don't move that much now. So
he's absolutely right. He said Terrence Crawford isn't moving as much anymore. Well, that goes in his favor, all right? But Terrence Crawford, he wasn't a crazy mover anyway. But on top of that, though he had quick feet and good feet, he moved appropriately. But on top of that, he isn't moving like he was, or especially against Madrimov. Why? He came in 170 pounds that night, all right? So he was heavier. But on top of that, he's also older, all right? So he is making an adjustment as far as his fighting style now. So I think Terrence Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez stylistically actually worked for Canelo Alvarez. Why? If you look at Canelo versus Bivol, all right? Bivol was able to jab and be a slick fighter, a good fighter, a skillful fighter, and outpoint Canelo Alvarez, especially with the jab, with the footwork, and the hand speed. And a lot of people would look at that and say, well, if he could do that, Terrence Crawford is a more skillful fighter than Bivol. No, it's not the same thing. It's kind of like saying, well, because Bivol was an extremely skillful fighter, all right, and AJ lost to Usyk, he'll lose to Bivol. No, AJ will destroy Bivol, right? This is what I mean. With Bivol's size and his durability, this is a guy who went 12 with Better BF, and no one has ever gone 12 with Better BF. It's not just Bivol's skill and his jab and his footwork that beat Canelo. It was the fact that Canelo was moving up to light heavyweight. And he wasn't able to hurt Bivol the way he was hurting other people. Bivol's durability and his size on top of his skill really mattered. He was able to absorb the punches from Canelo, block the punches that Jermell Charlo and Caleb Plant couldn't. Now, in referencing Caleb Plant and Jermell Charlo, that's a good segue when I talk about style. Canelo Alvarez is made to hunt. All right. And if you look at Jermell was running around the ring the entire fight, and he's a better athlete, especially foot-wise, than Canelo Alvarez. But Canelo Alvarez, knowing how to extend that left arm, back you down into a corner, right, with his good timing, with his defense, with his head movement, is able to stalk and maul and brawl in a very highly technical and highly skilled way. He did the same thing with Caleb Plant, who is also a very skillful fighter and a mover and a bigger guy than Terrence Bud Crawford, who I think will be packing a bigger punch than Terrence Bud Crawford. Understand, Crawford was knocking everybody out at the welterweight division. He goes up to 154 and he goes the distance against Madrimov. Canelo Alvarez, I don't think he's going to be feeling the punches from Terrence Crawford in a way that he's never felt before. I think Triple G punches harder than Terrence Bud Crawford and a very skillful fighter, and he was hitting Canelo Alvarez flush. I think Kovalev punched harder. I think all those things go without saying, right? So the question is, and the approach would be, can Terrence Bud Crawford move around enough to survive against Canelo Alvarez? Not only survive, but beat him. And Terrence Crawford, what we know about his mentality is he's not a point collector. Terrence Crawford is there to whoop your ass. And that's what I love about Terrence Crawford. He got the mentality of a fighter. He's not just going to try to stick and move with Canelo. And I'm going to tell you, that's not going to work. You're going to have to try to hurt Canelo. And I don't think Terrence Crawford can hurt Canelo. I'm going to end with this. I'm talking about skill level. I think people make a huge mistake, and they made this mistake, and they keep making this mistake when you talk about the comparison or the matchup between Shakur Stevenson and Gervonta Tank Davis. They see Gervonta as a puncher and Shakur Stevenson as a skillful fighter, and they forget that Gervonta Tank Davis may just be more skillful than Shakur Stevenson. He may just have a higher IQ than Shakur Stevenson. If not, Shakur Stevenson isn't lapping him in skill and lapping him in IQ. It's just that Tank has it all. Canelo Alvarez, no question, is one of the more skillful fighters in the game today. When we talk about size and talk about, well, Canelo Alvarez 168, but he's actually a little guy. Well, that's the thing. Canelo Alvarez is able to fight up and fight the Berlangas, who's 200 and something pounds, fighting him, and fighting the Callum Smiths, and fighting the Caleb Plants and all these guys who's naturally bigger than him and all those things. And he's a short guy because his skill makes up the difference. Canelo Alvarez is extremely skillful. So you're talking about Terrence Bud Crawford, who is extremely skillful, but long in the tooth, going up 3 weight classes, not up against just a strong thumper, but a skillful fighter. Let me know how you feel in the comments below. ShowBizz for adult. We in the zone, war room.
We in the zone, war room.
Both men in their fighting primes, 31 years of age. It's Bivol that will have a height and reach advantage over the much smaller Canelo Alvarez. What's the key here in the first round, Sergio?
First round is to get past that jab, that shotgun jab of Bivol. How is he going to be able to break that distance that Bivol keeps so well?
Canelo said he can't get off to a slow start, which he usually likes to do, Daniel. Why is that?
Because Bivol is a puncher that throws shots and bunches. He has a large arsenal that he uses, but one of them being his punch count. So Canelo can't start off short and slow because he'll be backtrailing.
And he's going to throw that jab a lot. In his last fight, 76% of his punches were jabs. Talking to Bivol's team this week, they want to be unpredictable with the right hand. They felt Kovalev was more too predictable when he tried to throw that. They want to make Canelo thinking about that right hand for most of this fight.
Canelo trying to come around the guard, the high guard of Bivol right now with lefts and right hooks.
Tight guard being shown here by Canelo.
Same tight guard that he had in front of Kovalev. like Manick said, so that jab will be effective even if it's just touching those gloves.
There's another uppercut trying to split the guard for Alvarez. But you can see when Bivol throws the 1-2s like this, he is scoring. And these are bothering Canelo, Daniel.
And you can, excuse me, Daniel. You can see the forehead of Canelo getting reddened as well. So those jabs and those punches, even though they're not a lot of power behind them, they're still having an effect.
That left goes around the guard of Bivol. He's keeping that hand up high because he has to. We've seen Canelo in the early stages of a fight take his time and then start to figure out his opponent and wear him down. Sergio, do you think he can do that against this bigger man?
He's going to have a harder time doing it with Bivol, because look, Bivol's not going to stay against the ropes just like he did there. He's always going to have to fight in the middle of the ring, and Bivol is not loading up on punches as well.
We haven't seen a lot of fighters come after Canelo the way that Bivol has. According to CompuBox, Bivol has thrown 40 more punches than Alvarez so far. Canelo sitting down on those right hands.
Canelo's been all power shots this round.
But we've seen this before with Canelo Alvarez, where he's biding his time, maybe even losing rounds or close rounds. We've seen it with Caleb Plant. We've seen it with BJ Saunders, and then in a flash, he turns it on.
Last round it was Bivol who was coming forward. Start of the fifth, it's Canelo. Just misses. Bivol not throwing back as much this round.
Yeah, Canelo is making a point to win this round and back up Bivol, make him feel his power. Those are big right hooks, overhand rights being landed by Canelo.
Oh, look at Bivol. Look at him go. Oh, my word, Bivol. And Canelo wants more of it. The crowd wants more of it too. Is that frustration from Canelo?
No, I just think that's discipline by Bivol. I mean, he landed his shots, got the crowd going, landed his points, then he went back on control. That's what he does so well. He stays in control.
No emotion from Bivol. He's a boxing robot in there. Just a moment ago, both of you said, hey, this could be tied. Maybe Bivol about round. There's something that probably say, wait a minute, Bivol's probably winning this 6-1, 5-2.
I wouldn't go that far either, but yeah, it's a close fight, and I will edge out Bivol.
Let's see what Chris Mannix thinks.
I've got 68-65 in favor of Dimitri Bivol. That jab is being used flawlessly as a weapon. Bivol is throwing combinations. He's landing. He's having more success landing punches than really anyone I've seen since Gennady Golovkin back in 2017-18.
And he just did so there. It's the 1-2 combination for Bivol, and it's been finding its mark most of the night.
Anybody that will tell you how Bivol will win this fight, this is how he'll do it. With the 1-2s, bouncing Canelo, moving in circles, staying off the ropes, Bivol's doing exactly what he needs to do to win this fight. Only one man has beaten Canelo Alvarez. That's a great Floyd Mayweather Jr. fight. He did it by fighting Canelo on his terms. That's what Bivol is doing right now. He fights someone he wants, but he boxes more often, stepping back and always staying in control, not giving up control.
Yeah, he's frustrated. looks like this, Canelo is definitely frustrated.
He's been frustrated.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah, Sergio, when it gets to a point where Beagle's hitting him just that will, and he's a bigger guy, it's almost very nerve-wracking for Canelo. Last round, but, you know, I thought Canelo could have, with one of those shots could have went down. Very strong chin from Canelo.
Canelo has fought 18 different world champions. Only Floyd Mayweather has beaten him.
And Beagle has only faced 2 world champions, and he's in a position to beat the champion of the world.
A minute to go. Right hand for Canelo. Jabs from Beagle.
Canelo is known to take on big challenges, fighting the best. He might have bit off too much than he could chew here tonight.
I've never seen Canelo this fatigued in a fight before.
Uppercut blocked this time. Did we underestimate Dimitri Bivol? Canelo Alvarez was a big favorite in the biggest fight of the year, but Bivol showed up and showed out and may have just beaten the pound-for-pound king.
Ladies and gentlemen, after 12 rounds of action here in Las Vegas, we go to the judges' scorecards. Tim Cheatham, Dave Moretti, and Steve Weisfeld all scored this bout identically, 115 to 113 for your winner by unanimous decision. He's still